Hi everyone, and welcome to the video solution on question 3 of the NGBAM Python worksheet. So essentially what question 3 is trying to make us do is to give us an idea of how we can pull out data from arrays or pull out sections of data from a data set. And the question reads, select the gravitational force less than 500 newtons. You can call this array whatever you like. So the question is trying to say that from the force we calculated in question 2, or in this case the array of forces where we've got 5 values, 1 2 3 4 5, select the values of the forces that are less than 500 newtons. So what the question is asking us to do is to look into this force data here and essentially pick out the values that are less than 500 newtons. In this case, it's going to be the first data point, the fourth data point, and the fifth data point, as those are the values that are less than 500. And the question is trying to make you do this using a for loop. So essentially how a for loop works in conjunction, as you can see in the in section, it says use the for loop, enumerate, and if statement to perform this task. So essentially the way the for loop works is for I comma value in enumerate, which is the enumerate function. Then we type in force here, which is the force array. Then we press enter. You can see Python automatically puts a colon here and moves you into the for loop so that you can type in the task you want the for loop to perform. And just a brief explanation on how the for loop and the enumerate functions work together. So essentially the for loop simply says for I. So I in this case is the position or the index of the data within the array. So in this case, the first data, as you can see here. So what this is saying, so I here is the position, which is the first, the second, the third, fourth, or fifth. So basically what the for loop does is that it moves through every single value or every single data point within an array and performs the task we are going to specify here at the bottom to that value, and then gives us a result at the end. So I, like I said, assigns position using the enumerate function, where the enumerate function essentially is a function that allows you to assign position or index to an array, in this case our first array. And one key thing to remember here is that Python doesn't start assigning position from first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Python does it in a weird way, you can say, from 0. So the 0th position, the first position, the second position. So in this case 98.1 would be our 0th position, which is our first data point. 1177.2 would be the first position, which is our second data point. So Python starts its indexing from 0. And what this value essentially means is that the value that data point has, the value stored in that position. So in the 0th position, the data stored there is 98.1. So take that value and perform a task on it, then give me a result. So in this case, what we are going to then say is for I, which is the position, and value, which is the value of that data point in the application of an index or position to all the values in the first array, then we then put in a task for it to perform, in this case using an if statement. So if value, which is in this case, each value here in the first array. So this statement says for each value in the first array, if it is less than 500 Newton in this case, and you can see from here, once I typed in enter, it creates a semicolon for me and takes me into the if statement. So if the value of the data stored in the first array is less than 500, in this case we want to store it in a different array. And one way to do this, or rather to extract the data, is to create an empty array. And the way to make an empty array is to simply name the array any name you want. In this case, I'll call it data1 equals, then I use an empty square bracket. Then I come back into my code. If the value in the first array is less than 500, I can then say data1 dot append, then in brackets, force of I. So what this statement means is that append, which means to write or put into, so this statement then means append, or to simply say write the value by going back into the first array and taking the position of that value. So as you can remember, I means position or index here. So I can then say write the data if it is less than 500 into the empty array I created, which is data1. So data1 dot append that value of the force if it is less than 500 newtons in this case. Then I can then click to come out of the for loop. Then what I can do essentially is click print, then type in data1 in this case to print the data out. Then I can run it, and as you can see, I get 3 values that are less than 500. So what this for loop essentially does is that it goes through each data point, assigns a position, and takes the value using the enumerate function. We then perform a task on those values, which is, in this case, if the value is less than 500, save it in the empty data or array we made, which is called data1, then print that value so that we can see and check if our results are correct. As you can see here, all the values are less than 500 newtons, and as you can see, in the main first array we had 1, 2, 3 values that were less than 500 newtons, and in the data1 array all the values less than 500 newtons is what we can see in here as well. So that is how to solve question 3.